So I was saying just a few minutes ago, I know you Kings all worked on the project together. Tony, Killian, Cory, you all worked on the T2 project. And I feel like that's a great place to start. There's so much to talk about around there, and I think it'll kick off a lot of energy that we can go down several different paths. So, I want to open it up to let's start with Tony Matos. You and I have spoke, Killian, you and I have spoke, Cory and I spoke this week, and I would really love to know, what your all's experiences were like coming together for the T2 project, and did you feel that you were working on something bigger, or was the scope limited enough to your scenes that you felt like it was a little bit easier to like digest of what was needed to create and what you had to send in? Like, how was that coordinated for you all? And was there any time that you all were collaborating with ideas from one to another? And I know Tony and Cory have worked together on a few projects, and they made a music video called Alive that is fantastic. If you haven't seen it, check out both their bios and go to their accounts. It is fantastic, beautiful visuals, great sound design. And, Killian here has an AI music video that he made for Davido. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. I know there's a little, I'm lost in translation. I know he's a Nigerian artist, but Killian made a music video, all AI content that has over 100,000 views on YouTube. So, that's really incredible to see that, somebody can bring an idea to life on their own with these tool sets and put it out to the world and get views like that. And like, people are hitting him up like it's good enough that they think it's a real music video from this, major recording superstar that is globally recognized and getting hundreds of millions of views on his content. And he just did it, because he was interested and wanted to do that. So I want to kick it off to Tony. Tony, what was your experience like on the T2 project? How much time did you spend on it? When did you first hear about it to when you were done? And what were your thoughts, of it being debuted live in LA? And what's the experience been like post production and after turning in everything?
What up, guys? Just wanted to say, thank you, Cam, Tony, for hosting this space. Killian and Cory, of course. Love you guys, and so stoked that we were able to accomplish that project. It was super cool. Dave, too, nice to meet you. And I see Alp in there too. What's up, bro? Yeah, I will say, first of all, the T2 experience was really awesome. It really started. I mean, it was last year when the calls came. I think it was either September or October. A good friend of ours, Sway Molina, was kind of reaching out and doing his networking to kind of like be like, hey, bro, you want to get involved in this project we're working on? There was a lot of excitement going on in those early days too. So it was just definitely this one of those like, oh yeah, absolutely. Let's like, get beyond just doing our own thing and get a actual scoped project together. So Sway kind of like started rallying all of us together. And then like we were able to we had a deadline. I believe it was like February, right? Like, so it was like, obviously during the holidays and getting that done. So that was to get our like final scenes together and put out there. So there was like a window of time to accomplish the goals that we had. My personal experience from it was interesting because I had an offline project that came up, too good of an opportunity to turn down. So I jumped in to do it, and then like really was kind of time crunch for getting my scene completed. So it was really kind of one of those situations where using the AI tools was, to me, it was more of like, how can you, with a small amount of window, how can you accomplish something that you are, proud of and excited about, while also showcasing the versatility of the tools themselves, being able to like put together something that's compelling in a small amount of time. And so, I was really just like kind of focused on like shortening my workflows, getting a comprehensive piece together, all the while we had a Discord going on, so we could kind of share, get feedback from each other, which was really cool. I think
Very
that's like
cool.
yeah, that was also a pretty exciting thing. So yeah, it was really exciting, cool to kind of do that as like a time capsule of like where the tools were at the time, and yeah, just kind of like a love note to that kind of like an era that we were in at that point.
Amazing. Do you feel like the results would be much different now based on the changes to the tool sets that are available? Like, do you look back and think, I wish this thing existed sooner so I could have used it?
Oh yeah, I mean, like even after we had the initial release, or the initial final quote unquote of our scenes, we were able to kind of extend those. We had a little bit of window of time to like add more tools to them and do what we could. I chose to kind of leave it as my kind of time capsule for that moment, but a lot of people I saw upscale and do really awesome things with the tools available. But even now, I mean, now you fast forward to just a few months later, and it's like there's already crazy
Right.
updated tools now.
Right.
So yeah, so it's almost it's like a project that could be remixed over and over and over and over again, which is kind of the awesomeness of this technology.
Until it's fully recreated Terminator style and like AI actually makes the entire movie. Like that's where we're really headed, which is so crazy. What tools did you use, if you don't mind sharing that with everyone?
Yeah, so I was really geared towards using Stable Diffusion to get assets that were more kind of a little wonky, but more like, in my opinion, they kind of looked more photo. That's more my background. I really like photography and film grain. So I was really like using that Stable Diffusion for my images. Runway was to kind of push things, but Runway and Pika both have two different ways of doing their motion. So I switched back and forth between both of those. Pika was obviously kind enough to let us use um, their model to kind of like really give us the server and allow us to use that. So that was good. But Runway also achieves some stuff that you can't get the other way. So just being a little bit more versatile with those, and then 11 Labs obviously was
Right.
cool. There was I don't remember what the name of it was. Maybe Cory or Killian can remember, but it was a audio tool that was different from 11 Labs that we could train the Arnold impersonator model on, and we were able to get some good stuff with that. So, but those were the tools I
Maybe
used.
Lyrebird. Is
It
that
was like Gen. It started with a G, I
okay?
believe.
Okay, cool. And Killian, Cory, Sway, feel free to jump in anytime here. Very casual conversation. There's no agenda here. We're just hanging out and talking. So like, don't feel like you're overstepping or interrupting anyone. Jump in whenever you like. Thank you, Tony. Thanks for sharing that. I every time I talk to a creator right now, it feels like I said this to Cory the other day. I was like, every time I talk to someone in AI, they say 4, 5, 10 tools that I've not heard of before, and I'm talking to a lot of creators, and this happens continuously. And as soon as I said that to him, he started naming new tools that I had never heard of before. And I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go again. So, I'd love to hear Killian, being in Nigeria, and it's so cool that Sway and them were able to put together this project that spanned the globe. And I'd love to know like being in Nigeria, what were you paying attention to that brought you into this space and got you connected with everyone? Was it just X and paying attention to what was going on there and jumping in? And what was your experience like being somebody that's halfway around the world from Los Angeles and being able to contribute to a project like this? And after you're done with that, I can't wait to hear more about your Davido music video.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Could be a little louder, but yeah, we can hear you. Yes.
Okay. I think I better just get off of mine. Hold on.
No rush. We're here whenever you're ready.
Is it better now?
Yes, King. There it is. There it is. Yes, that's much better. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, everybody, and thank you so much for inviting me onto this panel.
No, thank you for joining us.
Yeah. So, you know, my Twitter name is Killian Vader, even though that's not my real name. I'm from Nigeria, and I don't think many people can pronounce my name, my Nigerian name. But I think since I started this AI journey, um, the Killian Vader name has kind of stuck to
It's a
me
fantastic name. It's
like a
great.
brand and all that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was in Nigeria when I started my AI journey. I think the first person I noticed on X was Chris Castanova. I think a lot of people know her, and I was kind of interested in what she was always putting out about AI this, AI that, the tools and all that, and I didn't have any experience whatsoever at the time. I was just at the time a movie lover, and I was actually in the hospital when I started seeing all these things because I had a surgery at the time. And then I started, you know, looking into it, started learning the tools, and within a few weeks, I put out my first trailer, which to me I'm so ashamed of right now. And yeah, then I started playing with other tools. I started with Runway, started with then went on to Pika, and I eventually made a 9 minute short film titled Ebuka about an African warrior that's getting mixed up with Viking warriors and all that, and just a gothic kind of scenery, and that kind of got me interested because people were really like the video. I tried some other things, but it wasn't really going the way I wanted it, and I was considering just dropping this skill sets until I saw Sway send a tweet one day about the T2 thing, and then I reached out to him and Nem, and I was like, if these guys don't reach out to me, I'm just gonna quit my AI journey so far.
Whoa.
Yeah, that was what I was saying. I just told myself, if these guys don't reach out to me,
Good job, Sway.
it's over. I'm not gonna do anything with AI anymore. I'm just gonna pick up the next hobby. Luckily for me, NEMS reached out to me one
Awesome.
morning. I was in the US. I actually visited my family at that time. I think it was maybe around late November, December. I can't really remember. I'm not really good with dates. I was so glad that I was
Awesome.
chosen.
Awesome.
And then I was brought into the Discord channel, the chats, and all that. Nem and Sway did a very good job, organizing everybody to, um, do their work, ask for help, provide feedback, give advice, and all that. It was very organized, and it was very easy for me at the time. So I chose to use a photorealistic outlook to my scene. I did the scene 15 on the T2 remake, and as I was doing it, I was blown away by a lot of the outputs that the other artists were giving, and I was also inspired to do more. One challenge that I had was I'm not a funny guy, like Sway always says. I'm not a funny guy, so I tried as much as possible to add a little bit of humor here and there. And then towards the end of my scene, even though it wasn't captured in the final cut. I think it's in the director's cut though. I kind of switched from the photorealistic imagery to Lego cartoon imagery and all that, where they had the T2 and John Connor had to go back into time and to another dimension to go to while they're running away from the T1000, and a lot of people liked it. And when I finished my scene, I was so stoked. I was so happy that
That's awesome.
a lot of people appreciated what I did, and that motivated me to now go into uh, creating the music video, the Davido music video, even though it wasn't officially sanctioned by him. But I loved the music, and I wanted to test my limits with this. Um, my go-to tools are always Midjourney and Runway, and I'm not very skilled in other parts of, sometimes when I hear people saying, oh, they use stable diffusion, they did this, they did, I'm like, wow, when am I going to learn all these things? So I'm just a guy who just knows how to, how to place shots, how to, make facial expressions and all that, and then with a little bit of CapCut here and there. So I made the music video, and right now it has over 100,000 views, and I've been able to get more than 1,000 subscribers just from that video alone. It's been a very amazing journey for me so far, and right now I'm thinking of making more music videos, but at the same time, when more tools keep coming up like this, it kind of gets overwhelming, and you have to start keeping track of what tools that you want to use and what tools are no longer, in use and all that. But, it's been a fantastic journey. I owe everything to the likes of Heather Cooper, to Chris Castanova, to Sway and Nem. I mean, fantastic people, and I don't think anybody would get it better again.
Everybody that I've talked to in the T2 project has had incredible energy, super creative, very, very thoughtful in their approach and the way they're doing what they're doing, whatever their creative process is. And I was really shocked the other day to talk to Cory and ask him, what his future outlook was on the space. And he said he really wanted to do sound design, and that he's using AI for all of his sound design right now to generate sounds. And, Killian, when you said to me that you always wanted to produce film, and you've always been into film, you're a film guy, you love movies, and that this was your way in, it seems like this is just the tip of the iceberg for the creators on this talk right now. And it seems, Tony, our CEO that's in here co-hosting, he says every day, this is as bad as it's ever going to be. And that is you can say that literally every day, and it's mind blowing every day. And then, this week I see I don't know if you guys saw the 1950s Mario footage that was going around. It was on Reddit. It was all over X. But like, it's really good. It's really beautiful content, and it looks exactly like you would anticipate 1950s Mario to look. And I just find it so intriguing and inspirational that like somebody's thinking to themselves, I want to make a 1950s Mario movie clip, and then they're able to produce something at that level. And you just being able to say, I'm going in, I'm really glad, Killian, that the stars aligned, and of course they did, always right on time, that that you got inspired by Nem reaching out and Sway putting on such an amazing project. And thank God they did, because you're making some incredible pieces of content. And like the David O video, I hope that energy continues to carry you, because getting 1,000 subscribers on YouTube is no small feat. There are a lot of people that have been on YouTube for years that don't have 1,000 subscribers, and they've been making consistent content. So props to you, my king, sticking with it and, chasing what feels right to you. So, I want to get to Cory for a sec. Cory, maybe the most interesting response so far talking to creators was you saying you wanted to do sound design, because people are making music, people are making videos, but nobody has approached in that way, I feel. And you saying that was your main interest here. And then to tell me that everything that you've done sound-wise has been generated by AI is mind-blowing to me. I'm a sound guy myself. Please forgive the extra reverb in the room. I don't love it, but I just moved, and I'm in a room I need a rug. I need a rug, and I need a curtain. But it's very interesting to me that's the approach that you're taking, and that everybody's taking different approaches here. And you guys, coming together for a global project with everybody coming at it in different ways really showcases a plethora of tools that are available today. And, I think I think that is the key for the T2 project. And, I'm really interested to know from you, Cory, like, where do you see sound generation going in the next couple years? Are you typing in prompts that are like complex sound prompts, just like you would a visual prompt or a cue? And how nuanced can you be in your thinking when you're approaching that? Because you're the first person that has given me that feedback, and I'd really love to know more about the process of creating sounds with AI. And like, you're using words to create sounds, which is insane to me, because like that's how we would describe it. Like you see War of the Worlds. I really love the sound in the War of the Worlds Tom Cruise movie, because it was, it's spaceships coming, and it's like, and like people are getting evaporated, turning into dust, and it's crazy to imagine what that would sound like or whatever. But I'm just wondering, like, how are you going into it? Are you typing out the words that you want to hear and just hoping for good feedback? And like, what has that process been like for you? And again, thank you for joining us today. Very excited to talk to you more.
Yeah, man. Thanks very much for having me in here. I really appreciate it. It's an honor to be up here with such awesome folks. Um, it's interesting because a lot of the interest in doing the sound design and a lot of that stuff actually stemmed from the experience on the T2 remake project. Um, I guess I'm the opposite of Killian, and I just bulldoze my way onto projects that I think are interesting. Sway can attest to that one. I just kind of get in there and do my thing. But I'm also not afraid to just shout out, like, to Tony. I had put together the Alive video, and I just sent him a random DM on Twitter. I'm like, "Yo, dude, you want in on this?"
Awesome. Very
so,
cool.
so that's how that whole thing came together. But yeah, we got that all together. I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to do. I actually didn't get my first choice for the scene that I wanted. And so I had to sort of switch gears. And when I finally decided on the aesthetic, I actually put that entire section together in 3 days. The entire thing, all of the imagery was generated with Midjourney, and then it was completely animated, put together with music and sound design and After Effects. So the only thing that I couldn't generate were the bars that the T1000 has to phase through, because I could not generate bars for the life of me. So I made them in Photoshop. But yeah, so for the sound design, there's a bunch of tools. There's a lot of stuff now that is getting more into not only the AI voices, so you think of things like 11 Labs, but there are ones that will do sound effects as well. Cassette AI will do sound effects and some of these other things. And so what you can do is, the reason I brought up the T2 thing is that I've always sort of treated the AI outputs as the building blocks. I think I explained it to someone in another space before this one, the idea that uh, AI generated output is sort of like principal photography, for a movie or whatever you're going to do. And then you take that and you do post processing, you cut it up, you put it together, and you build your final product out of all of these building blocks and bits and pieces. And so for sound design, I'll prompt it for something like footsteps on gravel or high heels on concrete for walking, or particular animal noises or whatever it happens to be, and then be able to build the actual sound design of the scene from there. Another one that's kind of interesting is prompting it for odd sounding things, mashing words together, doing things like that. Because I always go back to the masters of sound design. You think about the guys who did Star Wars, and they took the sounds of high tension wires and they turned it into blaster fire and all of this
Yep.
other stuff. And so you prompt for interesting things, phrases, whatever it is you can think of, you see what it gives you, and then you can do some wacky stuff to it, either in something like Audacity or any of those other programs that'll let you do post processing on it and sort of roll from there with it.
Very cool. That's what I was hoping to hear from you. Is like, how are you meshing things together? Because that's what I love to do in AI, is like take something that's super outlandish and tell it to do that and just see what it gives me. Like for like rad GM posts, like it's something like professional wrestler, but it's a taco and it has huge muscles, and like typing in things like that, like it just makes me laugh, like even just saying it out loud. So like I was wondering, like, how you approaching it with that creativity of say putting things together that might make no sense whatsoever, but in your head that's what would generate the sound that you're looking for. So that's very cool to hear. Are you like building a sound library, naming these sounds, and like building out your own AI sound library to reuse these sounds in other ways, or are you calling it like the sound I just output is for this one particular thing and I'm done with it?
It depends on the nature of what I'm doing. Some of them, like footsteps, you can always reuse footsteps. I feel like, you know, rivers and creeks and streams and birds chirping and those sorts of ambient effects. You can never have enough of those. So I'll build the library out, but then also might add a new one. Like that's not quite the birds I want, or whatever it is. Like at the end of the Alive video, there is some waves crashing on the beach and a seagull and all of that sort of stuff. And I have probably 6 different seagulls squawking. They're trying to pick which one to put in there, that sort of stuff. And then, some of it is just when you find any kind of weird thing that you can. I actually took a sound effect. There's one at the beginning of Alive. There's like this sort of snap, crackle, pop at the beginning of it that I just thought sounded kind of cool in the middle of this bit of lull in the music. That really added some flavor to it. Various other things like that. I like it when things fall apart um, audibly. So there's a song called Unknown One that I did, and it just completely breaks down in the last third of the song, and I think that's pretty amazing sounding. And so I'll do that with some of the other sound effects as well. And there's been a couple. Um, Unfortunately, I'm not able to share them because of the nature of what I was doing. But I actually built an entire scene around a cool sound effect that I generated. It sounded kind of like a futuristic laser gun kind of a thing. So I actually built a gun in Blender and built a whole scene
Wow.
just because that sound effect sounded so cool. I had to do something with it.
How much editing are you doing to the sound effects? I know like everybody mentioned that their process for building a visual is, generate it somewhere, upgrade it or upscale it somewhere else, and then maybe they're taking it to runway and adding in camera movements and things like that. Are you doing a similar process for sound design?
Yeah, for some of it, if I'm going to use something as raw and then I'm going to do post processing on it to turn it into something else. Again, going back to the example of, finding effects out in the world that they then transform for like laser blasts or lightsabers or whatever it is for some of that. So if I'm going to do that, there's a lot of post work on it. But for some of it, especially for footsteps and things like that, you can get away with pretty low fidelity on those because they're
Sure.
more just ambient, set the mood, get something across. So a lot of those you can use just straight out of the generation software.
Very cool. Are you using like the age old see a sound, hear a sound in your production techniques? Is that kind of how you're building it, or are you thinking some different way?
So the way that I try to approach things. And it's a little bit different with a music video than it is with something else. But when it
Sure.
comes to actual sound design for visual elements, I always feel like the visual tells a story. So the way you're blocked tells a story. What you want the camera to look at. The actors tell a story based on how they're emoting and interacting with each other in the environment. And then the sound tells a story as well, and if in the best productions, all of those three things are getting across information about the story that they want to tell
Wow.
overall. So you can have things where, you might have two people. This is going to be probably a pretty crappy example. Where you've got two people talking, right? And if the background is people talking and plates clanking and all of that sort of stuff, they're like at a restaurant or at a cafe or whatever. Where if it's high tech, computer sounding things, maybe they're in some kind of sci-fi environment, or they're in a lab, or they're in a whatever. And so really understanding what's going on and allowing the audio to help tell the story of what's going on in a particular moment is really the approach that I take for a lot of that stuff.
Incredible. I'd love to ask you, if you're really into sound design, and I hate to put you on the spot, but I'm going to do it, and don't feel like you have to answer. You can pass. But I would love to know, like, what some of your favorite movies are, just sound design alone, like even if just one or two that come to mind.
So, oh boy, if you get me started, this could be dangerous. I love low budget. I love B movies, 80s and 90s, like action stuff. I've always been a huge fan, especially of the low budget action flicks with all the different kinds of punches and people falling on the ground and all that stuff that they insert. I love that stuff. I think so. I'm going to go super deep cut. I don't know how many people are even going to know this, but there was a little movie that came out in 1998 called Deep Rising. It was written and directed by the guy who would a year later do The Mummy with Brendan Fraser. And Deep Rising is a sci-fi horror action movie. It's kind of everything all rolled into one. But they've got monsters on a cruise ship, and they've got guys with these crazy rifles and all of this other stuff. And the sound design on it for what they have to get across between the creatures and the special guns that they made up just for this movie and everything else, it's pretty incredible. And since it's all in the water, they had to mix in the kinds of effects. There's underwater scenes, so you have to get that sort of funky muffledness to the explosions and some of this other stuff. So it's really kind of a tour de force, not only visually but also as far as the audio goes.
That's awesome. I'm gonna have to check that out. I'm like, your knowledge of sound design is going way beyond what mine is, and like you're talking about like movies that are like as unique as possible sound design wise, and like my like upper echelon sound is like, I like Interstellar. Just so boring, I feel like, compared to your answer. It's like there's monsters on a cruise ship with crazy guns underwater. Like, I'm like, just like the black hole sound is pretty cool.
I'm not gonna lie, the sound, actually all of Nolan's films, I don't know who he is has bleh, I don't know who he has as his sound designer, but that stuff is great. I mean, there's a reason why everybody these days uses the iconic, oh god, the Inception.
Oh yeah,
the big hits, those big orchestral hits. Like, there's a reason everybody bites that these days, and he did it first and really did it best. Like, everything else is just an imitation, which is why I think people are so sick of it these days.
Yeah, I mean, he really pushes sound to the forefront of everything he does. Like, everything's super loud, and like you almost can't miss it. It's seeing a Nolan film in theaters is almost a must for me, because I want the sound experience of, I want the mix stage that they were on played back to me, and it just doesn't do the same when you're on a TV.
If you want to give yourself just like this pure moment of awe, go back, load up Inception, put on headphones or the best stereo equipment you've got, whatever it is, and as soon as the city starts to fold, close your eyes and just listen.
I'm doing it today.
Is unbelievable.
That's fun. I'm doing it today. Thank you for that recommendation.
You can feel it happen as it goes, just because of the way they designed the sound. It's incredible.
That's amazing. That's really cool. I'm going to do that today. MetaPuppet, thank you very much for joining. I know you had a long travel today and didn't know if you were going to make it, but thank you very much. And I want you to know that, as soon as you made a rad channel, I checked out your everything you uploaded, and I shared your scenes internally with the rad team. And I was like, you guys have to watch this. And everybody was laughing, adding emojis to it. And it was just really well done. The comedy was good. The timing was great. And I would love to hear more about, like, I know you have a lot of traditional Hollywood background. And I think that really played into, you can see it very clearly in the pieces that you've made. And it seems like you're taking writing and storytelling to the priority, to it's very important to you. And I would love to know a little bit more about, like, how much time did you put into making that funny, and how long from when you heard about the T2 project until it was done? Um, what type of work went into that, if you don't mind sharing a little bit about that, and like the process that, like even your lip syncing was done really well, and it hit comedically, which is I feel like hard to do. I'm not as well versed in it as anybody in this space talking is, so feel free to jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like getting that timing down with prompts would take some time. And are you putting like big spaces in between words? Are you doing audio editing? What did it take to get those results out that really hit comedic timing cues, that I feel like that's a different level of production that's maybe comes from your background in traditional Hollywood production techniques? And thank you very much for joining today. Glad to have you.
Yeah, thanks so much. And thanks for letting me know about that. The team thought it was funny, because that's pretty cool.
They
Comedy
loved
being
it. Tony
being
loved it.
subjective. Yeah, I mean,
Solid.
there's
Very good.
comedic timing. I guess I've always heard when I went to film school, they're like, you can't teach the timing. I don't know, maybe you can't, but it's subjective. So some people find it funny and others don't. So but yeah, I found myself using tools at the time when I did. I guess my first one, it was back in September or August of last year, and the lip sync at the time, I used DID. It was this short kind of like film trailer called Open Source, and I wanted it to be very dry, and it was great because DID, there's no emotion in the AI on those faces. So I was just like, let me write something that matches the limitations of where we're at with AI. And I think that's something with my background as a screenwriter. Um, look, the story, the tools change, and there's all these new tools, but people, the story is always the thing that humans are going to latch onto. So I tried to basically write something that had the limitations of AI become the strength. And I don't know if I succeeded or not, but definitely with some of the timing, figuring out things like you can do with the length of the clip, just at first, if you just you generate in 11 labs an audio clip, and if you match that with an image and put it into DID, it does the same head movement at the same time. So I started playing around with, oh, let me put some dead space in the beginning or at the end, and you get these different pauses. So that was just something that I was playing around with DID at the time to kind of like manipulate the timing and make those kinds of timing changes. It took a long time. It took too long. My wife was like, "Just put it out. You're taking forever. You have a job. All this shit, And
Worth it. Worth it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, but thanks, man. So that was one of the things too. Is I was like, wow, I didn't realize it would take this long. And there's this kind of like this falsehood of, oh, AI just makes everything faster, and it's a great starting off place. I don't think it's a great finishing place. Like other people have talked about, if you're not taking these images and video and then doing post production to it, then I feel like it's not going to be really that good. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's just where we're at. My traditional background, I've been a video editor for 15 years, and started in commercials, done short film, music video. Mainly what I do now is documentary. Whoops. And so doing documentary, and people that I know that, are in the traditional space, I don't know. I tell them about all these tools, even with my job. I'm using AI, 11 labs whenever we are shooting interviews with people. Now it's in their waiver that we're allowed to clone their voice and not make them say something they didn't say, but if they flub a line in the past, I'd have to fix it. I'd have to go through the interview and find the certain word that I need and put it. It was just so time consuming. So
Yeah.
now I just redo the line, and it's been amazing. It's been a time saver. So things like that, bringing that into the traditional kind of workflow is that's been really helpful. So yeah, and this, I guess I don't want to get off track here, but with what you asked,
Oh,
but
you can't get
there's
off
so much
track. Keep
back.
going, King. This is great.
I mean, there's just so much backlash with. I've seen it on Twitter. I've seen it, or X, I guess. VFX artists who are just calling. They're just like applauding whenever AI fails, and it's like because they're proud of what they do, and I think VFX is an awesome job. But I also just think that this AI is just another tool in the toolbox, and I don't think they should be calling for it to fail. I just think that that's a narrow-minded, short-sighted view that they're taking. Maybe learn it, because maybe you can actually do your job faster, and maybe you can even get a raise. You can get paid more because you're utilizing it. So I think that's all going to die down, and we're just going to see this technology just like Photoshop in the past. We're just going to see it get integrated more into these traditional workflows.
Absolutely. I mean, people hated Photoshop for years, and they still do. People still talk shit about Photoshop. Things are Photoshop. Go ahead, Cory. You got your hand up. Feel free to jump in, King. Just come off mute. This is very casual. You don't have to raise your hand, my King. Come on in. What you got?
Well, I had something to sort of tack on to what Meta was saying, because 11 Labs. I've made jokes with a few folks that 11 Labs is the moneymaker, because we've done a lot of voice cloning for. I work with folks doing tutorials and information like that, and being able to take somebody's voice. We had to rewrite a portion of a script, and because I had the woman who was doing the presentation, because I had her voice cloned, we didn't have to get her back in for additional recording. We just threw it through there, and we were able to fix the script and know what she didn't even know she didn't record it, which was hilarious. We got permission from her to do it and all of that sort of stuff, but she actually guessed the wrong part that was the re-record, due to the AI, which was kind of hilarious at
That's
the time.
amazing.
But I was just thinking about that. Another thing that's kind of cool, especially as somebody who does voice work, one of the things that I've done with 11 Labs in particular is I'll do character voices and record a certain amount of time doing a character voice, and then I have it do the generation in that voice. So I don't have to worry about, what conditions my voice is in at any given moment to be able to do something like that. I actually have a recording that I did when I was super sick with a really nasty head cold, and then I put on a voice, and it doesn't even sound like me anymore because of how sick I was and everything else. But I can use that voice. I have it captured in 11 Labs to be able to use it for things. If there's a video on my X feed, it's the Gelman amnesia effect one. That's actually me
Oh,
when I
that's
was
good.
sick.
Yeah,
And
you
then
you used it more than once too. I saw. I
oh
heard it in
yeah,
another one. Yeah.
yep. So that's a lot of fun. I can't recall. I did the Fear Litany from Dune. I don't remember if I ever published that one or not, but I used it for that as well, and a couple other things. But yeah, I love 11 Labs and what it's able to allow us to help to do in that effect. I think it's awesome.
It's
Yeah,
fun. Go ahead.
Cory, that voice to voice thing. I remember last year, actually, with my documentary job. It was a host. He was the interviewer who we had to redo the line, and he was sick, and he was like, "Clone my voice if you know how to do it." And
Wow.
my boss was like, "Does anyone know?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I think I can figure." And I didn't tell them because I didn't want to give him the keys to the kingdom, right, so to speak, right. So I was just like, "Yeah, yeah." And it was literally 5 minutes, and sent it to him, and the guy, I cloned his voice, I sent it to him, and he just thought it was magic. He was like, wow. And then we started using it since then, but back then they didn't have the voice to voice, I don't think so. Now I do, yeah, like I can say the line, and it will even copy in the inflection. and I could make it, be a clone voice or somebody from their library. It could be a woman, and it matches the inflection. I've even done a melody, like sing a line, and it will match it.
Wow.
It's pretty awesome.
And that's you. So you put their voice into a program, and then you're using your voice to hit the right inflections or notes, whatever, and then you overdub. Then you connect it with the input that you had, and then just an output, and it's working quickly like that, like taking you 5 minutes.
I'll clone their voice, and then their voice is in the library, and then I will just record. Premiere, I'll just record myself doing the line, and I'll put that in, and it will match it in their voice.
Incredible. It's so funny that you bring this up, because a project I worked on years ago, they said a word that we couldn't make, me and 2 other editors, and we kept trying. It was like a day and a half, 2 days that we were all trying to make. And he said a ton of words. This is 2008-ish. And, we had a lot to work with, tons of puzzle pieces, and we kept trying, but you could just tell. And, we could tell. Maybe somebody who's not listening to audio like that regularly, they probably wouldn't even notice. It would just be, a split second blip that they would just be like, I don't hear anything. But we actually had to call somebody back in, and they were like, well, I'm not coming back in unless I get my minimum again. And it cost us like $15,000 to have this person come back in for one word, but like we had to have it. And it's like, that was think how much money was spent on production. And that's a common recurring theme that we keep having conversations with creators about, is how this budget that is the barrier to entry to so many people making high level productions is consistently being brought down almost every single day. And to bring that up, it would tie it in like Cory's sound design is a really interesting take. I'd be interested to know, like, with your background in like traditional Hollywood, what do you feel has been the most disruptive tool so far, or maybe combination of tools? And I don't want to say too much, because I kind of just want you to go off of that. MetaPuppet.
Oh, that's that's the things that come to mind, I think sound definitely comes to mind. I don't think visually we're there yet. Maybe like once Sora has a wider release, you'll start seeing establishing shots, those big those kinds of shots, or landscapes or something like that. Why would you fly a crew somewhere and have pay for all of that when it's literally just a 2-second shot that sets it up? That I think that'll be more AI generated. And then I don't think people are going to be using Chat GPT to write a feature film yet. I mean, I kind of hope not.
It's not funny yet. I haven't seen any, and that's something I've brought up for the last several months, is I haven't seen it produce any good jokes yet that really hit for me as a person. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you guys have.
You have to work really, really hard. I actually used to teach comedy. I was the president of a stand-up club at my university, and I taught comedy. So I went through some of the materials with ChatGPT to teach it comedy, and I actually had it writing pretty decent 2-3 minute stand-up routines. You think about something like Jay Leno's opening monologue from The Tonight Show 1.5 million years ago, that sort of thing, have it riff on a particular topic. But after a while, you would see that it would still come through with some of those, I call them GPT-isms, right? So it's those particular words and things that it likes to repeat over and over and over again, even when you tell it not to. And so, it would go through some of that. I'd be interested to see what it does now with much larger context windows and RAG and all of that sort of stuff. But yeah, you got to put in a lot of work to get it to the point where it's going to actually say something that even is mildly funny.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it seems like everything that I've seen, even when people are kind of trying to prompt it in the right direction, it just feels cold. It doesn't feel comedic like that. Like I brought up to MetaPuppet, maybe it's the delivery that's off, and that's my problem, or the way it's written, I feel, is so important. And that's another recurring theme that keeps coming back is so many people are using these tools, but it always comes back to the written story to make something really, that touches humans in a way that captures emotion and gets their attention and makes them stick to reading something or finish a piece of content. And it's interesting. I'd love to know, anybody that's here on the panel, what are you guys seeing AI wise that is really outputting written content in a way that may be beneficial? Or do you all feel like that's something that it can't reproduce at the moment, or it can't produce something that competes with a human output? And I'm just going to open it up, whoever wants to answer that.
It's good for rough drafts, but you need a person to rewrite it. That's my whole take on it, I suppose.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's really interesting because a lot of people, obviously using this platform, you could have access to Grok. They've made it available, and it definitely has its wonkiness and is not as powerful, if you want to call it that, as just straight up ChatGPT. Even Mixtral has it has some really good sort of conversational approaches, but there's a back end of Grok that they're working on. I was able to get access to it a while ago, so it's like the desktop version of it, and it definitely has some capabilities conversationally that I think that people are going to be really surprised with once it starts getting some legs underneath it. I mean, Elon just got I think $6 or $8 billion valuation set up. So so there's gonna be
18. I saw he raised 6
right
at an 18 billion valuation.
Oh yeah. So there's gonna be some money going in that. So we'll see what happens. But obviously, because Grok has been trained with the content that's on the platform, right? So there's a lot of there's a lot of shit posting, but there's a lot of funny people on here too. So
right. A lot of comedians that they're taking.
Yeah, right. Or comedians in training, right? Whatever. So so it's just really exciting because I think people are going to be pretty surprised when that thing kind of rolls out, and it's just really, like Cory said, about kind of training it to kind of get it up and running. Once you kind of get that going, I think it'll be really cool to see how that kind of affects the landscape. But that's just something that's in the background.
I also have to say, I sort of love the AI jank. I mentioned earlier, I'm a big fan of the 80s and 90s movies, the low budget stuff, and you see some of the horrendous special effects and some of the super early days of 3D and stuff. And you just look at it, you go, "Oh my God, that's horrendous. I love it." Right? And I'm seeing so much of that with AI these days. It's like, that looks ridiculous. Show me more.
That's great.
So,
do you think it could develop into its own content genre? Do you think the people are going to take this to a totally new level?
I think it is already.
Wow,
I think that to a certain extent that the T2 remake is sort of a testament to that.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
Right. People look at it and they go, "Oh my God, it's so janky. I can't wait for the next scene." And that sort of aspect on it is very much that same experience like you saw with a lot of those things back in the day. And to your point earlier with breaking down the barriers, I think that's the biggest thing. How many projects are we going to see? How many people who were aspiring folks, but they didn't have the money, they didn't have the access, they didn't have the technology, they didn't know anybody who could help them do whatever it is. And now you need many fewer people, sometimes even one person, and boom, you can put together that thing that you've been dreaming of all your life. And I just absolutely love that that's a possibility now.
Yeah. I'm a living testament to that.
Nice.
Yeah. Because I actually have the HR background. I didn't go to film school. Nothing, no sort of training whatsoever. But just being a kid, watching movies from the 80s, 90s, and all that, and then one day you're just like, "Oh, I wish I could get to make a movie like this." And then boom, the AI revolution pops in, and then you get to start making your own projects. I think that's the best thing ever that a kid from Africa or wherever can experience.
Yeah, I agree totally. That's in the '90s when I was a kid in my room and bedroom and just thinking of all these stories. Like kids these days are able to just generate it and see what's in their mind, and not even kids, but my mother was a teacher for disabled kids. So if you think about anybody with physical disabilities who can't really even use the computer. And if you think about, text to image, text to video, you can talk to it and it's going to generate stuff. That's just amazing. And I think that we're going to get so many more stories out there, and people will be able to participate, in a more of in a fair level playing field. And so people who are calling for its demise, that's where I think they're just really short sighted.
Are you really seeing a lot of that in your traditional circle of content creators and producers in Hollywood? And is this a conversation you're having regularly at the moment?
I've heard. Well, there's a lot of silence around it, and especially last year with the strikes, they had to be. Um, they might have thought it was cool, but they just couldn't. They couldn't do anything with it, and so now that's starting to fade. But I'm sure you guys have seen that AI generated kind of I don't. I think it's like a rom com on. Is it what is that? T. It's that TV company that made I can't the acronym. It's like T something something. You guys know what I'm talking about? It's this.
No.
It's like
TDK,
not TDK. It's
TLC, or TCL.
TCL.
Yeah, TCL.
Yeah, TCL.
Yeah.
They have that show that is 100% AI generated. Have you guys seen
Whoa.
this? And
No. Please tell us more about that. No, I'm not familiar with this at all. I'd love to hear more.
I got to look up the name, but it's basically a romantic. I think it's a rom com, and it looks really. It just doesn't look at all great. I mean, in the sense of like, that you have this big company who I don't know what their budget was, but they're putting this out there as an episodic. And I think it's really I give them a lot of credit for doing that because nobody wants to be first, and now you have a first, and they're getting a lot of hate. I think it was like Variety or Yahoo or something wrote, how terrible it looked. I think they actually said this is what the Hallmark channel would look like if they just gave up, which I thought was hilarious. Um, but now you've got this studio, I guess. I don't know if they're a studio corporation. They put something out there. I think we're definitely going to see more of it. And I don't think like this isn't going to replace traditional production. I mean, it's going to be integrated, but I also think you're going to eventually see just a new like division in award shows. You'll just have the award for AI generated film. I don't think I think they can both coexist. It's like we have vinyl today, records,
Sure.
and of course we have digital, but people still collect vinyl. And the same thing, it's like with everybody's got a cell phone with a camera on it, but Polaroids are driven by like 18 to 25-year-olds. So these things can coexist, and everybody can gravitate towards what they like.
Right. That's a great point. Even with music stuff, electronic music, you could really tell a long time ago what was electronic music. And now electronic music doesn't really mean really anything with super high sample rates. And then you're sampling an orchestral output and you're taking those pieces and the playback sounds exactly as it did when it was played live. And nobody knows that that's air quotes electronic music because somebody's hitting a button to trigger a horn instead of a brass button on a horn itself. So like I think you're right that's definitely the case. I'd love to know, like anybody else on the panel, MetaPuppet, are you guys, do you anticipate something this year? Like, is it Sora being added to Premiere? Are we going to have a breakthrough moment this year where we're all blown away by an AI generated piece of content, even if it's just a scene in a movie? Do you guys anticipate that's coming in the next 30 days, 6 months? Do you guys have any thoughts on like the projection of a timeline of when maybe we stop thinking there's a difference between AI and traditional production, and it just seamlessly flows one into the next and tricks everybody who's watching it, where we don't even recognize that that's a cut scene or something like that.
It's already
Well, I think it's safe,
it's
I
already
think it's safe to say that
Yeah, I would
probably from
I mean,
next.
maybe this is a bold prediction, but I got a feeling like sometime in the summer, somebody's gonna pop off because, like Meta was saying, a lot of people, maybe like they couldn't touch the tools, on paper in public, but behind closed doors. I mean, especially if you're a creator or you're into like building, like there's no way that like even if you don't like it publicly, like that you're not like let me mess with this thing in the background, right? And especially if they already have the traditional background and skill set to be able to put together a cohesive thing. I would bet that by the tail end of the summer that somebody's going to put together a piece. I believe his name is I think is it Paul Trillo? That could be wrong. He was a part of the Sora kind of rollout that went on, and he's somebody who has that background. He just released like a video, a couple videos already, kind of showcasing it. So that's where I'm saying like somebody like that is going to take a step out of that pack and go ahead and release a reel to show the strength of traditional mixing with AI. I would see that it more about them showing that traditional is here to stay and it's an integration versus like the replacement, right? Like that replacement part is not something that I would feel would be like the big champion moment, just because it's too far out, really.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Killian, Cory, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say if it's, I mean,
Yeah,
if
I
you're
was
talking,
like trying to say that.
Sorry, I think there's a little delay. We're halfway. You got to remember, we're halfway. We're all around the world here, so there might be a little delay from people. So, Killian, Cory, if you would just hold on for 1 second. Killian, go ahead, and then Cory, you can pick up.
Yeah, I was just trying to say that with the emergence of Sora, I'm thinking towards the end of the year we might have something like that blowing up. But if I want to be safe to make an assumption, I think by next year, by summer next year, we're gonna have something in that capacity where we are going to have AI bringing out something very powerful in the make of a movie, and maybe a little bit of traditional touch into it. Yeah, so that's just me. I'm thinking between the end of the year, this year, and summer next year.
Awesome. Thanks for your patience, Cory. If you'd go ahead now, please.
yeah, absolutely. I was just gonna say, I would assume that this would have to be limited to video, because if you don't limit it only to video, it's already happened.
Done. Yeah, great point.
Yeah.
Great point.
Not only, I mean, how closely do you want to tie this to stuff like the deep fakes that they used
Sure.
for
Amen. Yeah.
a young Carrie
Great
Fisher
point,
in
Cory.
Star Wars,
Yes,
or any of that sort
absolutely.
of stuff? But also, I know for a fact of circumstances where, to bring it back to what you were talking about with somebody getting in, wanting a minimum, whatever else, and Meta talking about having it in the contract for cloning voices. Like, there's been, I guess, redubs or retakes of lines done with AI for everything from, movies to TV shows, and nobody's any the wiser about it at the moment. So from that perspective, that's already been done. From video, yeah, I think about the fact that the opening for Secret Wars was already done completely with AI and like old school janky AI, which I think is hilarious. But there's sort of that preliminary acceptance to a lot of this stuff. But as far as something that we're going to consider we'll throw it in air quotes, Hollywood quality, right? That sort of thing.
Yep.
I think we're within the next 6 months for that sort of thing. And you'd have to throw a caveat too on it and what exactly you mean, because there has been AI generated components to things that have already been used, whether it's, a replacement for an old matte painting or that sort of thing that was done with some of these other tools. So I think the line gets super blurry in some of those areas as to what exactly you want to specify as to what that means.
Great point. Go ahead, Meta.
Yeah, I also just wanted to say, as an editor, on a technical level, you see Adobe Premiere integrating OpenAI, Runway, Pika. So video in painting, that kind of stuff. From a technical in the background, they're going to be using AI driven technology to fix shots, remove, something, change a shot. I think that the demo Adobe gave was the guy in the back of a car opens a briefcase and there was like a couple diamonds. They wanted to change, the amount of diamonds in there. I mean, there's going to be so much of that the audience will never know. So it's not just going to be, yeah, there'll be this fully AI generated film. Which, by the way, I put in the chat the link to that show I was talking about by TCL.
Thank
But
you.
I think you're going to see it just integrated into the tech, into the behind the scenes stuff, just like visual effects. I think you're going to see a ton of that.
Where do we draw the line? I'd love to ask you all that question. Like, where are we drawing the line between like what is considered air quotes AI and what isn't? Is there any consensus on that at the moment, or is this highly debatable of what qualifies as AI? Because there have been some incredible deep fakes, and you got to think going into the election season, this is going to become a problem, like a very big problem very quickly.
I think that's part of the reason why the conversation tends to break down in a lot of ways is because different people have different definitions of what constitutes it. So, for example, you want to take After Effects. You've had AI for the roto brush for 2 years. So if you're going to do any rotoscoping and masking and all of that sort of stuff, you've had AI assistance technology for that for the better part of 18 months. So were you using AI when you did that? Or you look at like DaVinci Resolve and they have, excuse me, they have AI tools for transcription services for creating subtitles. I can go in there and it'll auto detect all of the language and create subtitles for me, a subtitle track to add when I upload it to YouTube or somewhere else, which is all AI driven. So, I mean, there is just so many options and tools and opportunities as far as that goes to bring your workflow in line, but also to reduce the amount of physical manual labor that you have to do. You think of rotoscoping, you think of, out painting, you think of any of that sort of stuff. And we've had the ability to do that all with AI for quite a while now. So I guess personally for me, that's part of the reason why I never really saw the difference.
I think it may get into the realm of anytime somebody's job gets replaced entirely. So if your generative AI seems to be a pretty big sticking point for a lot of people, and we feel like there's a huge opportunity there, but we also have to be sensitive to what's going to happen, what's already happening.
Sure.
What's out there? Yeah.
It's a very interesting point that I have some friends that do podcasts and things, and something that we've talked about over the past few months is that nobody has a right to their voice. You don't own the sound of your voice, and think about how dynamic every individual's voice is. Like Cory's like, I loved my voice that one day, so I made a model out of it and now I'm reusing it. And it's like somebody could be like, well, that sounds like me. Well, there is no sounds like you because our voices are always ever changing. And, you could have a cold one day or you start smoking, whatever it is, and your voice changes drastically. There is no current laws around being able to protect your voice. You're allowed to protect your image, and you're allowed to trademark or maybe copyright. I'm not sure the exact legal terms of like, let's get ready to rumble. Like I'm allowed to say, let's get ready to rumble. I'm not allowed to say, let's get ready to rumble in the way that the buffer guy is allowed to do it. And I can't get on stage and do that exact thing. But there is it's really interesting that we're talking about cloning people's voices and how nuanced that conversation can be around like, well, I like this voice, so I'm just going to take, Brad Pitt's voice, or what's the guy that does all the voiceover stuff, like the nature documentary guy that
Richard Attenborough.
yeah, Attenborough. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Thank you very much. And like be like, well, I'm just gonna make nature documentaries. I'm just gonna get all the footage I can and just put that voice on there because it's so remarkably well known. I'd love to know if any of you have any opinions or have had any interesting conversations. MetaPuppet, I know you like in the traditional space. Like, are you guys are you? Is this an area of concern, or is it just like we'll see what happens and we're on the ride? We don't. There's no telling.
I actually didn't know that, so now I'm gonna go do that. I'm just gonna go rip off famous people's voices and put them all over my videos. That's crazy. I didn't know
Try to
that.
stop me. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I get. No, I like I said, I didn't know that. So no, not a concern. I mean, I thought more of like the concern was political, as far as like Biden got his voice, that robocall that happened in like New Hampshire or something during the um, primaries or something like that, where it was a deep fake of his voice telling people not to vote. So I
Oh
think,
wow, I'm not hip to
yeah,
this.
that's a whole, so that whole spectrum with cloning and deep fakes and all that can be very dangerous. And I'm pretty sure the government has already pressured a lot of these, AI focused companies to not release stuff to the public until after November.
Sure.
Um, I
Great
feel like
point.
there's
Great
definitely
point.
backroom conversations about that.
That's really interesting take. I have not heard anybody tie the releasing
I'm
of these products.
speculating.
I bet you're
I'm
right though. It's got
speculating,
to
but
be
I'm pretty
correct.
sure. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know,
Feels right.
there's also, like how far out are we from an AI model that is a custom like a Pirate Bay or a LimeWire or something that has massive GPU power that really has no limitation whatsoever. Anybody have any opinions on that and like how disruptive that would be? And that's something we talk about internally a lot is all of these major companies that are rolling out their AI models now. They have to be very careful because they're going to be the ones that get sued, or they're going to get tied up in lawsuits for individuals that use their tool set to break whatever laws or infringe on anybody's IP or whatever it is. But it does seem like how far out are, and it can't be that far from somebody posting a link that is Pirate Bay that's we'll generate whatever you want and nobody's going to stop it because it's distributed. And Cory, I know you're big in the distributed world. Do you think about this a lot? Anything to add there?
I think one of the interesting things, probably my favorite thing to see what's going to transpire in the next few months is I think it's sort of the opposite. You think about Steve Martin, let's get small, right? I think small is what you're looking for in the future. Some of these super fine-tuned, like 3 billion parameter models, as opposed to the massive GPTs. You take something that is able to run on a cell phone, right, or run on a Raspberry Pi, and you're able to fine tune it to exactly what it is that you're looking for, exactly how you want it to talk to you, with exactly what you need it to know. I think that's where where the rubber really meets the road in terms of moving forward with models and tools that are really going to be supportive of individuals and what they want to accomplish.
Can
So
you
I think small is the way to go.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Like when you say it, where my head went immediately was like an AI that like knows all about 1996 Honda Accords or something, and like I feel like you have a more distinct or like a better path to like where that could be disruptive or helpful for individuals. So I'd love if you say a little bit more on that.
Well, so it's funny because with something like, so this is pushing way out. I'm sure somebody much smarter than me, uh, and most of the people working in this field are much smarter than me when it comes to that stuff. But you think about retrieval augmented generation, right? RAG. If you hear RAG, that's what they're talking about. And so you have a database of information, and the context that you give the model determines what it pulls out of the database. And so if you get the information, let's say, Honda Accords or whatever topic, now you have 100 databases of stuff that you care about. You start talking to the model. The model basically only exists to turn database entries into conversational items, right? So you go, hey, I need to, fix the locking mechanism on my 96 Honda Accord. And it pulls the Honda Accord database, and then it uses the language model to actually turn that into a conversational response rather than just an item regurgitated from a database.
Okay.
Is that making sense?
They already exist in a sense. There is this website Hugging Face, where there is a database of all AI, and there's even text to text, where you can download a version of your offline AI and basically train that to only on that subject there. So basically, you can take a base AI and train it on Toyota, that version.
I think we lost you. Laszlo.
Oh,
There, you're
oh,
back.
yep.
You're back.
There you're
You
back.
fell off for a second. If you could repeat the last couple of things you said there right before you went away.
So basically, if you download this AI, you can train it to do only that thing. It's basically all free. There's even paid version that you can do.
So, like, how does this differ from like ChatGPT today, where I can just ask ChatGPT, "Hey, tell me all about," like I just used it to shop for a new car, and I was comparing models. I whittled it down to like the entire spectrum of a couple different models of vehicles. It was able to tell me all the different things, and it's pulling from a time period of like what is, I think it's like back to 2022 now or something, and don't quote me on that. I'm probably wrong, but like it has a time frame where it's pulling information from the web at that point. What is where's the benefit in not training it on massive amounts of data versus like a singular smaller database when your conversation could go beyond the realm of, and like they do, like we're always kind of going beyond our breadth of knowledge. That's why we have conversations with other people, is to like bring in the nuances of their knowledge base, or comparatively, I need to know this thing that is kind of completely unrelated to better understand this thing. Like, could either of you, Cory or Laszlo, give a little bit of insight as to like why a smaller model may win over instead of a massive model that has all the information?
Power.
Yeah,
So
part of
basically,
it. Oh, go ahead.
hardware. In a sense, hardware. So basically, if you have a bigger AI version, it needs more hardware. Therefore, more power and more heat. You have to basically cool it down and that kind of things. If you go on the Hugging Face and you see on different text-to-text AI, you see 7B, 13B. That is the model that is based on 7 billion of parameters, 13 billion of parameters, and therefore.
Thank you, Laszlo. Go ahead, Cory.
Yeah, so basically there's essentially two pieces to creating one of these things. There's teaching it to talk and telling it what to know. And so the initial training is all about teaching it to speak. And then what they call fine tuning is teaching it what to know. And so the more that goes into those parameters that are used to teach it how to talk, that's your parameter models part of it. And then additionally, what it needs to know. And so, for example, something like a GPT, part of the challenge right now is getting it to reference what you want it to know at any given moment. So imagine it for a second, if your brain contained every line from every movie ever written, right? And somebody references a line but doesn't tell you what movie it's from, well, you're going to run into conflicts. You're going to bump into things. It's going to be like,
Absolutely.
well,
Sure.
which of these 73 movies are you referring to when you mention that line? And so that's why a lot of what we have to do with the chatbots right now is give it context. Do you use custom instructions at all with ChatGPT?
Yeah, I try to, and
Yeah.
I'm not as well versed as any of you. I feel like the dumbest person in the room every time I talk to you all as creators, because I forget what they're calling it now, like tool smashing or something, where you guys are using, 3-4 different tools to get the results you want. And,
Kit bashing.
Yeah, kit bashing. Yeah, there it is. Thank you. And that to me is, above and beyond what I'm doing. I'm only paying for Chat GPT at the moment and Suno. So like I'm using those two, and they kind of don't. I will use Chat GPT to like generate a little bit of lyrics and then put that into Suno and play with it a little bit. But I'd love to know more about what you're thinking, Cory.
Yeah. First of all, kit bashing, fantastic word. Actually
Sure
comes from
is.
Star Wars. On the first Star Wars, the way that they built out the Star Destroyer is they took a bunch of model kits and they glued random shit to the base model.
Wow.
And so it's literally kit bashing together is how they built a lot of that stuff. So we owe so much of that language to Star Wars. It's unbelievable.
Star Wars
But
is so fun. Just you brought up. I don't want to get off topic, but you brought up earlier how they were, doing very interesting sounds. I met a guy once who worked on the original Star Wars and then the subsequent movies through like the 90s, and he said that when he first started doing sound design, they actually had him edit sound to fighter pilots in dogfights. And they just told him like, hey, make this space, but use these as the cues and just make the sounds for this imagery. And like Star Wars did so many things that we still are using today. It's amazing to me that you bring up kit bashing, and it's another Star Wars thing in 2024 yep. From 1980. What year was it? What year did Star Wars come out originally?
77.
Amen. Wow. How far ahead of your time are you? We don't even know yet, like that.
Oh my God, it's unbelievable. Absolutely. As far as the actual models go, so on the profile on Twitter, it's not your models, not your mind. You and I had a conversation about that a little while ago. And I think that's really what drives a lot of what we're talking about here, is because, so if you imagine that ChatGPT knows everything, well, no person needs to know everything there is to know in the world to function on the day-to-day basis. And so I think that part of what we're going to try and learn and discover, especially over the next year or two, is what is if you've ever shipped software, you've heard of minimum viable product, right? So what is it that we can ship to consumers that's going to get their needs met initially, and then we can build it out later? And so what is the equivalent of an MVP for a chatbot that can help somebody live day-to-day life doing their thing, right? And then where do you need to build it out from there for maximum support and functionality? And so when you talk about these small models, you've got your phone in your pocket all the time.
And so Siri's got to be the minimum. She's got to be the minimum. She's the worst.
She needs some help. She needs a little renovation. But you think of a model that can run on a phone, right, without having to access the internet. So what is the smallest model we can have that's going to run on a phone's hardware and run in a fashion that it's going to be able to support the user to do what they want to do on their day-to-day and support the maximum amount of help with the minimum amount of space and processing power? Like Laszlo was saying earlier, it's all about how much compute you need to eat in order to respond. And so I think that's the future, is finding these models that have enough parameters to talk intelligently to a person and enough support and memory to be able to talk about what the person wants to talk about and wants to know about on the regular basis.
Incredible. You guys, we're at 90 minutes already, and it has absolutely flown by. I cannot believe it. So I don't want to take up too much more of your time. So at this time, I would like to ask anybody, do you guys have any questions that you guys want to ask Killian, Cory, Tony, Tony Mugavaro? Anybody have anything they want to ask? I see you in the crowd. Jeezy, what's up, baby? Finney, do you guys have any questions for the panel here today, or any questions you guys want to ask each other? All right. Well, great. I love this conversation. I could talk about this all day long, and it's one of the most exciting times I can imagine to be. Like, people are like, if you could be any time, when would it be? I'd be right now. There's no doubt in my mind. This is incredible. And just to be able to have these conversations and know how many people these tools are empowering and opening the door for creativity, it really is mind-blowing every single day. And if you're not looking at this and being inspired and excited, and instead you're looking at it and being angry or thinking that this is not adding to the outputs and the creativity, it's something Cory and I talked about the other day. Was, it's so many more stories coming online, and Meta talked about just recently, saying on here about people with disabilities being able to create in new ways that they couldn't have imagined 3 years ago, or maybe they could imagine, and they're like, why the hell doesn't this exist for me? And now we're finally here, and they can start to bring these things to life. It just feels like nobody here, no matter how well versed you are, no matter how deep you are in it, nobody here can see 2 years ahead in AI. And 2 years is probably even insane, like who knows where we're going with this, and how dramatic the shift is going to be. And I love that Meta brought up that there's probably backdoor conversations saying, do not release this until after the election, because then we have until 2028, so we get another 4-year period with no presidential election where we're not going to have, and something I wanted to add to that. I'm glad my brain came back to it. They just charged a memer gave him 10 years in prison for making a meme that was around Hillary's campaign, and it said, text this number, like vote for Hillary, excuse me, to this number. And people stayed home and texted to that number. So she lost votes because of a meme that was put on the internet. And I think, how minimum of effort was that to put it out, and the impact that it had. And I mean, you could see probably how many people texted to this number. Like, it's probably readily available data that you're like, well, there's 10,000 votes that went down the drain.
That's
or whatever.
wild.
And like, that's where we are now. So like, what's next? What do we see this year with, do you guys think we see any disruption with the election? Do you guys think that we're all going to be talking about a deep fake on the timeline in the next few months?
Well, yeah, they, like always, they trying to always to corrupt the media to win or lose the election. So basically, when Hillary and Trump there were in fact a lot of fake things about Facebook as well. So basically, there were the Russians who tried to influence the American media to vote someone who I don't remember who, maybe Donald Trump, to push the votes towards Donald Trump on Facebook.
Anyone else have anything to add there?
I don't know if this election. Well, I think everybody's going to be able to tell because it's not as good. The next 4 years from now is the scary one.
Sure.
At least for us. I mean, elections are going on all over the world, and I mean that the tools are pretty good right now, but you can kind of spot it, and I think people are on guard right now. But what happens when we kind of get numb to it and the tools get even better? we end up in even a worse spot.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that's a great point, Tony. I was gonna touch on that too, and just say that I think the unintended consequences of all these things, right? And one of those, more than likely, is going to be people's critical thinking, especially people with agency, is going to go up. Like it's going to keep leveling up right now. I mean, that's kind of,
we can hope.
Yeah, well, you can hope, right? But like the reality is, like, we've been force fed a lot of media for a long, long time, right? And then now more and more people have the means of production to be able to kind of create their own media, right? So now people are basically getting inundated with so much content that they kind of write a lot of it off. But I think, especially when it comes to things of critical nature, I think that's important now that a lot of people are kind of looking at it and giving it like a second look now, right? And so not everybody, right? But I think even if we get a percentage of the human population to start doing that a little bit more, I mean, that's just a net win. As if more and more people are a little bit more careful and critical thinking about the images, the messages, everything that's coming in. I think that's a net positive. Yeah, obviously it's just a lot of disruption, in the process. But
love
You
that.
want a weird tangent on it? A weird way of looking at it? So we see a lot more politicians on podcasts, Joe Rogan, whoever, whatever podcast it happens to be, right? I think we're going to see a lot more of the politicians on podcasts because they're going to be there, they're going to be getting their ideas out, they're going to be talking for long periods of time. And if it were me, just me personally, I'd want to get on these places so people know who I am, what I sound like, the kinds of things I say. And that actually makes it harder to deepfake because if you're creating a deepfake of me saying something that sounds completely absurd based on the 17 hours of podcasts that I've done, it's going to be even easier to spot. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that kind of engagement and interaction, number one, because it benefits them. And number two, I think to help combat some of this stuff. So I think it could be really, really interesting soon.
Yeah, I think the long form content's definitely a good defense mechanism if you're in the political light. Go ahead, Jeezy. I know you had something to say there and unmuted. Thanks for your patience.
Yeah, no, this is just first time, long time listener, first time talking. But yeah, I don't know if you all saw the this recent, I believe it's out of Maryland, but an athletic director was just charged yesterday, first time ever, with using AI to create a recording of the principal making him say like racist things in an attempt to get him fired. Yeah, but it was caught. So yeah, it'd be interesting.
Yeah, after he already got put on leave, right? Like the principal got put on leave, and they were like, "Oh, we're exploring what's going on here." And then, like 2 months later, they figured it out.
right, yeah. So
this guy's already lost all of his friends. His wife left him.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, it's first case that's happened with. So it'll be interesting to see, if any precedents are set with cloning voices and doing all that. But yeah.
Very interesting. Thanks for bringing that up. I wonder how they found it. Do you have any insight on like what they did to track that? Did you follow it?
I mean, it was basic AP article, so they probably don't understand the technology behind it either. So I haven't done the deep dive on what I was trying to find out exactly what he used. But athletic director in Maryland, hip to AI. It's great.
Wow.
Wow. Guys, I wanted to just say one last thing. Like all of us here are pretty tech savvy, right? I'm assuming. So you think about most of the world is really not. And I can't tell you, like, unfortunately, we don't need really good AI to cause misinformation because typically also with like even an older generation, I can't tell you how many times I've heard, like my father-in-law say, "Did you hear this? Such and such a thing happened." And it's a headline. And I'm like, well, who's the source? Oh, I don't know. I didn't read the article. It's like they hear something and it's just a headline. And to them, that's it. And so they don't even need to see a really good deep fake, So I think this kind of Facebook, misinformation is going to, once again, we're going to see that through this whole election year.
Absolutely. Cory, what's the name of your video? You mentioned it earlier, the Gel something that talks about this exactly.
Oh, the Gell-Mann amnesia effect.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different. Mostly, it's the idea of if you're an expert in a field and you see how little reporters understand your field, but then you turn to a different article that you don't know anything about, and you go, "Oh yeah, they must know what they're talking about," when they just proved they don't in the article that you just read. It's actually a quote from Michael Crichton, who was one of the more brilliant writers we've ever had.
Finney, I saw you're off mute. You have something to add, my king?
Yeah, I'm going to jump on to like 3 different points just to
Amen.
tie it together. So I'm going to go in the other direction and say that I think people are going to hit a fatigue on the gotcha nature of deepfakes, or thinking that people, what they say in some situation is the end of their thinking about a topic. That the reason being that people are becoming too inundated with information, and to be able to synthesize like a very broad perspective on a topic or an individual from a 10-second soundbite or a 10-second video clip or something is essentially impossible. That's just not, I don't think that's at all how we really create relationships or networks. And then to build off of that, you guys were talking about, is there going to be a moment in the next 30 days or 6 months or this year that becomes a wow factor integration of AI in video? And I would say, again, opposite direction. It's going to become mundane in that you won't notice, and after the fact, you'll say, "Oh, I'm wowed by the fact that I didn't notice that it became just this background element or component of what I was absorbing from a screen or from an experience." In the same effect that, look at how the Mandalorian's produced in front of large screens, and that's filmed. Let's take something like Blockade, toss it into one of those screens, so you're generatively building out an environment that is more or less 3-dimensional, and having actors or elements existing in front of that. Nobody's going to notice. The resolution of those things is good enough, or again, of low enough concern once it's filmed and moved through post-processing, that you'll just say, "Oh, I didn't even really notice that. I guess I do like these things." The last thing that I was going to talk about is multimodal AI and what is happening in terms of agents. And I think that's something that, because we focus so much on one particular channel of creation or specialty of how we work, that we're maybe not paying enough attention to what's happening in that field or in that side of things, where they're tying together all of these different components and really being able to automate so much functionality or so much operation into the background, where again it becomes this mundane thing, but you're able to expect a good enough result to where you're impressed that you didn't notice that there was really a difference between what it manufactured and what you might have manufactured given 5 or 10 minutes. So those are the things I was going to talk about. But yeah, thanks.
Thank you for sharing. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Okay, so we've got like 15 minutes left and we've got to wrap up. And, we do these spaces kind of regularly, and you all are an incredible group of people to have on here. This has been one of the favorite conversations I've ever had hosting anything. This is fantastic. I want to give each of you a chance to talk about what you're working on right now and what's next for you. And I'll start with Killian, my king. Thank you for joining from around the world today. It's been awesome to get to know you over the past 15 days and have a few conversations with you. You're super inspiring, and I'm really glad that you didn't give up right when you thought you were going to, and Nem and Sway reached out to you. Your work is incredible, and I'd love to know, what are you working on right now? How can people follow you, and what's coming up for Killian?
Well, I just finished a short movie. I've already posted it on Twitter. It's actually pinned on my profile. It's called AI Harper. It's about a detective in the 1920s going against a mafia boss, and it's in black and white. It's a noir movie. I have a couple of scripts that I'm working on, short scripts that I'm working on. I haven't quite chosen the one yet, but I'm kind of leaning towards working on a short story about the Biafra War that happened in Nigeria. It was about the civil war in Nigeria, so that's kind of where I'm leaning into. But if anything happens, I will let everybody know. And anybody can, follow me on Twitter. I'm Killian Vader on Twitter, and also on YouTube, the same name, and on Instagram as well. And I
And
just
on
want to thank.
Rad.
Yeah, I'm on Rad as well.
I know
Yes,
you
don't
are. I
forget
know
Rad. Don't
you
forget Rad. You guys are gonna
are.
see me very big on Rad. In fact, I'm actually trying to get a huge machine that's gonna help me out in my Rad journey. You
Amen.
guys keep on inspiring me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for being here, King. I'll tell you, your David Doe music video. If you guys haven't seen that, definitely go to his YouTube channel and check that out. It's got a ton of views and it's beautiful production. The images are incredible. So definitely give Killian a follow on here. Uh, Incredible energy from him and really high level AI generation stuff. And he's very creative. So keep up with Killian. Killian, thank you again for joining today, King. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
King Cory, what you got coming up? I know you've got a ton of things on the plate right now, and you're really eyeballing the summer. No pun intended. I would love to hear what you got coming up. How can people follow you and stay up to date with everything you're doing? I'm glad you got that joke.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Yeah, so I have the X account obviously from right here. There is a link in my bio to the other media accounts. I've got YouTube and Instagram, and I'll be firing up the Rad tonight. So we'll be getting that going. As far as projects go, the stuff that I can talk about are a few things that I'm working on for personal projects. I actually finalized some music for an upcoming short that I'm working on. I'll probably be posting the actual, just like a still background with the music over top of it, maybe later today or tomorrow, depending on how I get it all sorted out. Because at the moment, my wife is staring at me, waiting so that we can go out to dinner. But yeah, so that's a lot of what's going on. Two things that I said for this year is I wanted to get into the sound and music stuff, and I wanted 2024 to be the year of the collaboration. So if anybody wants to collaborate on stuff and work some stuff out, please hit me up, let me know, shoot me a DM, whatever. Due to some health concerns, I've been a little slower than usual lately, but I am having that sorted out at the end of May. So I will be back in action 100% after that. But for the moment, yeah, hit me up. Let me know. I can't wait to see all the incredible and awesome stuff y'all are producing. And thanks for having me here. I really appreciate it.
I loved having you. I really enjoyed our conversation the other day. You have incredible energy as well, and really grateful that everybody I invited joined us today. This has honestly been one of my favorite conversations in a very long time. So thank you, Cory, and you guys follow Cory and definitely check out the video that Cory and Tony did together called Alive. It's a awesome piece, and I think everything in there is totally generated. So definitely worth checking out if you're checking out AI content. MetaPuppet King, thank you for joining today. I know you were traveling and had a very full day. How can people keep up with you? What are you working on right now? What's coming from you later this year or soon?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Being part of this community is awesome. Kind of like Cory, I have a hungry 6-year-old staring at me, so that's what I got next. But I'm working on a thriller in 3 parts, so it's probably 9 minutes in total, maybe like 3 minutes each part. And it's a photorealistic style, which has been a pain in the ass. And so my next thing is definitely going to be some surreal kind of, I don't even know, animation or something like that, where I can get away from this photorealism stuff. But yeah, YouTube, Rad, of course, X. I don't know if any of you guys are on Lens Protocol, like Orb or Favor. That stuff is really cool. You should look into it if you haven't heard of it, because you can basically, you own your content, and every post that you put out, you can you can set like a, what do they use? Bonsai. That's the crypto that they use. You can also use Matic. So you can basically just put out, one of your AI films, and you put the post out, and you can monetize that post. And you can do the same with music, everything like that. So it's cool. Check it out. Orb or Favor, Phaver. And yeah, man, the last thing I wanted to say is, like, we were talking about how cool this is to be able to, as an individual, get this vision out of your head, using AI. But really, the collaborative nature of it is huge. And with the T2 remake, that was my first kind of glimpse into that, where I was like, okay, I come from a traditional background and I work with crews and stuff like that, but it's not going to replace that either. Yeah, you can do some cool personal things by yourself, but really teaming up with people, um, you're going to make even better stuff, because everybody's got their strengths. And like Cory said too, if anybody's looking to collaborate, do something, let's all just do something. Thanks a lot for having me.
Thank you for joining. You're awesome. Loved our conversation as well, and look forward to seeing everything that you create. I'll tell you, sharing your work in our company Discord was really fun, and everybody loved it. So keep going, King. I know you got a ton of ideas. You got scripts floating around Hollywood, doing everything traditional and cutting edge. It's awesome to see, and very inspired from everything you've done and the stuff you're creating. So keep going. Tony Jose Matos, where can people keep up with you, and what do you got coming here soon? And thank you very much for joining today. Love your insight and your energy as well. It's really incredible how much great energy is in the AI community. It's just so many great people, and people willing to share what they're doing, and just really awesome that you guys were all here today. I can't say that enough. Thanks for being here. Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, I just want to say once again, thank you, Cam and Tony, for hosting this space, and for all you guys up here, people in the audience too. This has really been just a great way to touch base with people who just fallen in love with just by working with, watching their content on the feeds and stuff. You can find me on x.com. That's where I love to post all my stuff. It is the everything app for right now. I have a YouTube channel, of course. It's the same handle, Tony J Matos. You can find me on that spot, but I really have just been posting most of it here to kind of get feedback, get some understanding, get a little bit of buzz going. And the main project is continuing to build out Beach Punk, the Lost Coast, exploring that world. You may see that on my feed. Just kidding. It's like the only thing I love posting about. That kind of jumps about a little bit of what we originally talked about, which was like getting a concept off the ground and running. I mean, Beach Punk it's a little bit of my creative work that I did before I got into AI, blending that as a token into AI and using that. And then that became a world, and then that world is a universe. I mean, that's the kind of power that this technology has. So it's been really exciting for me to kind of build that out in public, get a lot of feedback. I got some exciting projects kind of coming up in the horizon. But for right now, it's just really about kind of getting that thing up and running, and getting more people kind of excited about it and wanting to build in it. I kind of talked to you about that, Cam.
Yeah, I was going to say some more about that, because I think that's like hitting everything on the head here of collaboration and generation. Yep. So please say more.
Right on. Yeah, it's really the concept is to build a universe that others can bring their stories into. Like, it's an open world essentially, to be created, not just by myself but by others, like a tangible place. It's a little bit of what it's called a giga dream. It's just like a term I just kind of added as a token, but then it just became part of the mantra, which is like a collective space where others can come together to share a unique vision. And so that's kind of my long-term goal, is getting it to be a place where people can jump into it and just be like, hey man, here's this side character coming in and they got this thing going on, and it's just a great way to kind of not only get my own storytelling out there, but also to get other people involved in it as well. Yeah, that's just a little bit of what I'm trying to punch out into the universe, and I'm just grateful to be able to have a lot of people around me rooting me on, and also just pushing me to keep messing with the new tools as they come along. So just grateful for the time to talk with everybody.
Same. Glad to have you here, and thank you very much for joining. You guys, thank you all for your time. We're right at 2 hours. King Tony Mugavaro, do you have anything that you would like to add before we wrap up?
No, I mean, this was an incredible conversation and very insightful. Like Cam said, we hear so many new tools and new things that everybody's using to create. And so it's just using this as an opportunity to learn and share as much of that info as we can with everybody else. And so, yeah, no, this was a great combo. Really appreciate everybody's time.
Yep.
It's amazing.
We will be reaching out to all of you to get your ETH addresses and your BSV addresses so that we can monetize this and you all can be paid out. And that's pretty much the only way we're distributing this, other than being here right now for it. So, we're monetizing content in a pretty new way. And if any of you have any questions about that, feel free to DM or jump in our Discord and ask away. And I know, if I have any questions with AI, I'm coming to you all for sure, because you guys make me feel so silly. Like I have no clue what's going on. And you guys are like kit bashing out here with 5 different tools to make incredible pieces. And I'm like, how did they get that with OpenAI? It's like, we didn't use OpenAI. We used 13 things. So, I feel like I'm constantly being educated by you all. So thank you for showing up today. Thanks for your great energy, both on the calls we've been having privately and here. And we do these spaces kind of regularly, and we're going to be doing a lot more of them. So don't hesitate to jump in here and be a speaker anytime. Please come back and join us again. And does anybody else have anything they want to say before we wrap up?
Thanks very much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Cory. Go ahead, Finney.
Yeah, I've got a couple of things that are kind of wrapping up right now. First one is out already, but it's an AI short that I did released a couple of weeks ago called "The Fall of Tartaria." It's up here on Twitter, but it's also over on YouTube, and like it's my best performing video that I've ever put out on there. And I don't have a lot of followers or whatever on YouTube, so getting 25,000 plays is pretty solid for me.
Very cool.
The next things that I'll be releasing, I've got an audiobook that's coming out pretty soon. That'll be up on Audible, Amazon, and Apple Books, and in libraries. If you don't want to pay for it, you can request it from your library. And then the last piece is I'm doing an AI cut of the Chicago 1893 documentary, and that is going to premiere at Docs Barcelona next week. So that'll be, it's all AI too. So we have been using Runway to generate all of the scenes and cutting that together. It's about 25-30 minutes long. So it's been a sprint and a marathon at the same time over the last 2 months.
Well, thank you for sharing. You guys follow Finney as well, and look out for this. I'll let y'all know when it's live on Rad. I'll probably get it uploaded in the next couple days or so, and I'll be messaging you all for a little bit more info. So thank you all for joining. Cheeto McNasty, aka Jeezy, thank you for joining today. I really appreciate it and your insight, especially like the pointing to the current event that is monumental and exactly what we're talking about. So thanks for your knowledge there and your good questions. That's it, everyone. I appreciate you all being here. I hope you have a rad weekend, and thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Later, all.
They're breaking down the walls, empowering creators to answer the call. Web3 and AI, now they're leading the way, distributing and monetizing a brand new day. Putting power back in hands, creators and fans unite. NFTV. The future is bright.